Chapter 62:21. Seeing that Charlie didn't mind revealing his identity in front of his future wife and stepson, Pollard was relieved. He had been open and honest all his life, and he loved Mei Ching sincerely. He just wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. So he didn't want to think that every time he faced Charlie in front of his wife, he would treat him as the son-in-law of the Xiao family who knew a little feng shui, and made friends with some local dignitaries with feng shui and zhui. He was not good at acting, and lying was even worse. But if Charlie declined, he could completely understand and respect it. But he didn't expect Charlie to agree so readily. At this time, Pollard didn't know that Charlie actually wanted to take all four of his newly formed family under his command. With a relaxed and happy mood, he and Charlie came all the way to the hillside villa of Champs-Élysées. Grandpa's family had already prepared a banquet and were waiting. From the moment they saw Charlie's car coming up the mountain, the three uncles, aunt, and Duncan all went out to wait for him. The old man and the old lady wanted to come out, but the temperature in Ores Hill has dropped a lot in recent days, and the sky has darkened. The children were afraid that they would catch a cold, so they refused to let them go. Before the car stopped, Charlie saw the 5 people waiting for him. He was a little surprised and a little overwhelmed. After all, they were all elders, waiting for him here together. This scene was really too heavy in terms of etiquette. But the Yin family didn't think it was heavy. After all, Charlie saved the Yin family from danger twice. This kindness could not be compensated by seniority. Not to mention Duncan. If Charlie hadn't saved his life, his body full of bullet holes would probably have rotted long ago. Charlie parked the car and got out with Pollard. His uncle took the lead and stepped forward, smiling and shouting, "Charlie!" Charlie got busy addressing them one by one. Uncle, second uncle, third uncle, aunt, Inspector Lee. After that, he quickly introduced Pollard beside him. "Let me introduce you 5. This is my mother's schoolmate, Professor Pollard Watt." Professor Watt used to work on Wall Street and later came to Ores Hill to teach at the University of Finance and Economics. His second uncle Marcus, who had always been in charge of external affairs at the Yin family. He nodded immediately and said, "Professor Watt, I've heard of your name on Wall Street before. Everyone said, you are the most discerning Asian in Wall Street investment banks. I have heard a lot about your brilliant achievements." Pollard said seriously, "Mr. Yin is too polite. When it comes to investment vision, no one I know can be compared to Margaret. In front of her, I am just a primary school student." After that, he felt that it was somewhat rude to mention the deceased Margaret in front of the Yin family. So he apologized and said, "I'm sorry." After saying sorry, he didn't elaborate on the reason. The Yin family must understand this kind of thing, and he didn't need to explain it too clearly to cause secondary harm. However, in the eyes of the Yin family, Margaret had been dead for 20 years. After all, and their mentality had long accepted it calmly. So when Pollard mentioned her name, no one felt offended. After all, Pollard was also Margaret's schoolmate and good friend. Charlie was going to introduce Pollard, so he said, "Uncle, my second uncle is often in the limelight, you should know him, right?" Pollard nodded. "Mr. Marcus, of course I know him, I have long admired him." Marcus said politely, "Professor Watt, you are too kind." After that, the two shook hands politely. Charlie introduced Pollard's eldest uncle, third uncle, and youngest aunt, and then Duncan. Unexpectedly, when Charlie was about to introduce Duncan to Pollard, Pollard said first, "This must be Inspector Lee. I have seen many of your interviews and reports, and I admire you very much." Duncan smiled modestly and said, "I'm just a detective. Far from being the pride of the Chinese people. Your achievements and contributions are much greater than mine." No. Pollard said seriously, "It's not difficult for us Chinese or even the entire Asian people to make money in North America, but it's really not easy to get recognition from the whole society there. There are many overt and covert exclusions and discriminations. which only the Chinese in the United States have known for so many years. You can get the recognition of the society, which is really great. Pollard's words made several and family members agree deeply. At this time, Charlie's grandmother couldn't help but open the door and said, "It's quite cold outside, why don't you come in quickly? Don't let Charlie and the guests stand outside all this time." Charlie smiled and called out, "Grandma." Grandma nodded, smiled, and waved, "Come in, it's time for the meal." "Hey!" Charlie responded, and the few of them hurried into the villa. The old man also came up and said to Charlie, "Charlie, have you been okay in Orris Hill these days?" Charlie smiled and said, "Very well, Orris Hill is very safe." Then, Charlie introduced Pollard to his grandparents, knowing that he was their eldest daughter's schoolmate and good friend. The two elders were naturally very enthusiastic. The family invited Pollard to sit at the dining table. The old man reminded his sons, "Professor Watt is your sister's classmate and friend. You must accompany him for a few drinks." After that, he said to Pollard, "Professor Watt, if you can drink a lot, drink more. If you can't drink a lot, drink less. It's up to you. There are no rules for how to drink at the dinner table." Although Pollard seldom drinks, he has a good alcohol tolerance. He was happy to see the Yin family today, so he agreed without hesitation. The old man asked Charlie again, "Charlie, why don't you drink a couple of glasses too? If not, I'll ask your aunt to drive you back to the city later." Charlie smiled and said, "No need, Grandpa. I'll ask Orville to drive me." The old man laughed and said, "That's great. If you drink, I'll drink a glass too." The old lady hurriedly said, "You're still drinking. Your brain is confused. Who has Alzheimer's disease? Have you forgotten?" The old man smiled and said, "My eldest grandson is here. It's okay to drink a glass. What's more, Professor Watt is here too, so we have to drink 2 glasses."